Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories: shockwaves across Europe as Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders' Freedom Party claims victory in the elections. Our other headlines: a deal but no truce. Airstrikes continue in Gaza as an agreement to release Israeli hostages is postponed to Friday. Residents in Iceland are allowed to return home to collect their belongings as the country braces for a volcanic eruption. Results from the Dutch election have sent shockwaves right across Europe, with the surprise rise of the far-right leader Geert Wilders into a position that could see him become Prime Minister. Wilders' populist Freedom Party came out on top with the biggest vote count that will see his anti-Islam party get 37 seats in Parliament. The lawmaker wants to stop all immigration and has threatened to call a referendum on the Netherlands' EU membership. CGTN's correspondent Alex Cadier reports.
We are the biggest party in the Netherlands. The Dutch far-right Freedom Party has sent shockwaves through Europe, coming out on top for the first time in a Dutch election. The anti-Islam Eurosceptic Geert Wilders and his party will command 37 of the 150 seats in the Dutch parliament. The incumbent party of outgoing Prime Minister Mark Rutte fell to third place. The Labour and Green Party coalition bucked the right-wing trend, picking up nearly 10 more seats than the last election, a gain that could be crucial in forming the next Dutch government.
There's no question that this far-right surge is a big change in Dutch politics, but it doesn't mean that Mr. Wilders will be Prime Minister. At the moment, he still needs around 40 seats from other parties to have a majority and form a government, and as things stand, he just doesn't have the numbers.
These three leaders from the centre-left, centrist and centre-right parties could work together to form a government that cuts Geert Wilders and his Freedom Party out altogether. A move Geert Wilders says does not give voters what they asked for.
I think that people would not understand and not accept either that if the biggest winner of the elections would not have an important role in that coalition. So we all have to be reasonable, we have to be responsible, and we have to compromise on many issues to make sure that those votes are getting worth their money.
Wilders, however, will struggle to form a government. Frans Timmermans' party, in second place, has ruled out ever working with him or his party. So too has Pieter Omtzigt, the centrist Dutch MP whose 3-month-old party surged to 20 seats. That leaves the outgoing party of government, the VVD, as a possible coalition partner. Their leader, Justice Minister Dylan Yeşilgöz, says Wilders as Prime Minister is not an option, but that leaves the possibility of a cabinet position for Geert Wilders. What's clear is that the Netherlands has moved towards its political right wing, a move which worries Frans Timmermans' Green Labour coalition.
It will be horrible for anyone who has a different background than like a white Dutch background. It will be horrible for the queer community in the Netherlands. It will be disastrous for the future of, basically of life on this planet, because for sure a hard right government will also take no climate action.
This election had been too close to call, but now that the results are in, coalition negotiations can start. The last negotiation to form a government here took 271 days. So while Mark Rutte is definitely out, it may be a while yet before we find out who will replace him. Alex Cadier, CGTN, The Hague.
Alex, so 271 days last time round. These coalition talks really won't be easy, will they? I mean, just talk us through that, how that's going to work.
Yeah, well, actually, Jamie, the time before that, it took 225 days. That was in 2017, 271 days in 2021. If we do the maths and keep that trend, it'll be 326 days this time round. And obviously, that is just a prediction based on the last two general elections, but there certainly is a clear sign that this will take a while. The reason why it might be even longer this time is that those political parties are quite far apart. Beforehand, these were centrist parties trying to find an agreement and working together. This time you have
this surge of the far right. You have Geert Wilders and Freedom Party leading, or at least certainly being the biggest party. Now, the options are quite limited for that far right party and who they can work with to be in government. Geert Wilders as Prime Minister seems difficult to see how that will happen. At the moment, the centre-left Labour-Green coalition isn't going to work with him. They don't want to be part of that government. That centrist, new 3-month-old party is now a maybe. Peter Omtzigt had said, well, we don't want to work with Geert Wilders. We disagree with his desire to ban Qurans and Islamic teaching in the Netherlands that's seen as unconstitutional. But we heard Geert Wilders at his victory speech yesterday saying, well, we are ready to govern, we're ready to compromise on a number of issues. Maybe that's an issue they can compromise on, getting the centrist party on board for a coalition. So there's going to be a lot of negotiation, of wrangling. The big question will be, will Mark Rutte's party, the outgoing Prime Minister, also jump into a coalition? Now, that will take a long time. One person particularly concerned with this is the current caretaker, outgoing Prime Minister Mark Rutte. He's been in the job since 2010, 13 years he's been in that job. We also know he'd be possibly applying to be NATO Secretary General. He can't do that so long as he's still caretaker Prime Minister. So certainly a long time ahead to find a new Prime Minister.
Alex, we've talked about the politicians. It's the day after the night before. What do you sense the mood is like across the Netherlands today among those voters? I think we may have lost the sound feed to our correspondent, Alex Cadier, there in The Hague, but we might return to him a little later in the programme. In the meantime, we'll carry on with the rest of today's news. And people living in Iceland's Grindavik have been allowed to return home to collect their belongings 2 weeks after the fishing town was evacuated due to fears of a volcanic eruption. There's been growing seismic activity and underground lava flows, which has caused cracks in the earth. The experts warn an eruption is imminent, with poor weather hampering their monitoring systems, which could leave people with just a few minutes' warning. Let's talk to our correspondent, Johannes Pressburger, in Iceland. Johannes, does this mean that Grindavik's residents will be able, perhaps, to move back home soon?
Well, even though the magma continues to flow underneath this crack right behind me here in the Icelandic town of Grindavik, the authorities now believe that the location of the possibly imminent eruption moved away from this town center a few kilometers out of the village, and so the government decided to let the Grindavik residents back into this town today for 6 hours. Accompanied a few of them, they're allowed to go back into their homes, check on their belongings, look if anything is damaged or broken, and some of these houses are indeed broken, as I've seen with my own eyes. But they seem quite optimistic that this moving away from the possibly likely eruption location means that this town is safe.
It's good. It's good because I plan to come home again. I plan to continue living here. So it's like I know now I feel more safe. I feel like my town is safe and that we can all come back and rebuild. So yeah, I feel good. I'm not as scared.
Johannes, what's the latest you have on the centre, the epicenter of this expected volcanic eruption?
Well, so it's moved away, as the scientists believe, from here. Over there are a few mountains and a power plant, a geothermal power plant, which is essential for the energy supply of this southern Icelandic peninsula. So over there, the land is continuing to rise above a so-called magma cavern or magma reservoir underneath the earth. So they expect that the volcano is likely to erupt over there. However, in general, the situation is calmer now. The public safety level has been lowered. The risk is lower from emergency to only danger. So also some of the media expect that the damage of this volcano won't be as bad as expected. But we'll have to see what happens in the upcoming days as the situation keeps on changing.
Johannes, thank you very much for that. We'll be back to you later. Our correspondent, Johannes Pressburger in Iceland. A deal to release Israeli hostages from Gaza in exchange for Palestinians held by Israel won't now begin until Friday. amid last-minute wrangling over the details. Name lists have been submitted, but not agreed by either side, and there's reportedly a dispute over the involvement of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Fighting has continued in Gaza, with Israel stepping up raids in the north. The Israeli military says it's launched 300 airstrikes in the last day and warned of rocket fire into southern Israel. Palestinian media report Israeli strikes in the city of Khan Yunis, where Israel has told residents in the north to seek shelter. Well, let's talk to Danny Ayalon, the former Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister and the country's ambassador to the United States between 2002 and 2006. Your interpretation, first of all, of this delay, what's your sense of why we have this delay?
Well, I think there are two explanations, because we really don't understand. Either Hamas doesn't have at hand what he claimed he had, and the idea was that he would release 50 hostages, of course, mostly women and children, young children and babies. Either that, or they had a second thought. One thing is certain, that they have not allowed yet the ICRC, the International Red Cross, to visit. They did not even have a full list, did not supply even a full list. These are both war crimes that they have committed, but this is a series of war crimes. So we are still here waiting, first of all, to see the list, and secondly, to have them agree to allow Red Cross to see the hostages.
Okay, well, let's say it does go ahead on the new day. I wonder, could this pause, when it happens, be extended? I mean, it's never going to be long enough, is it, to achieve the humanitarian aims that it needs to on either side?
Well, you see, how did it all start? You know, we left Gaza in 2005, 2007. The Hamas took over. Hamas is ISIS. We see that. We see their ideology. We see what they do. And they have since turned Gaza into one big military bunker of terrorists. And the two war crimes that they have perpetrated is that they are aiming at our own civilian population, and they're hiding behind their own. So this is where the real humanitarian problems all come from. At the end of the day, I think that if Hamas does not just surrender and keep hostages, and they keep not only our babies and elderly as hostages, but also the 2 million people of Gaza. So if they surrender and give up their arms, then the whole problem will be solved quite, I would say, adequate.
After this humanitarian pause, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that this war goes on. Is that inevitable?
I think so. I think that no country would allow ISIS, Hamas, a terror organization, to be on its border, creating a imminent threat on a constant basis. We would like to see a peaceful Palestinian leadership that believes in coexistence. This may take time, but this cannot happen before Hamas is being ousted of the Gaza Strip and actually of existence altogether. And I think the entire international community should just come up against Hamas and eradicate it, just as they did and are still doing with ISIS.
Can I ask you, given the awful violence that we've all seen on both sides over the last week, it's remarkable that we're even here talking about a pause in hostilities. I wonder, can the influencers who delivered this pause when it happens perhaps also deliver a peace?
Well, the ones who have the most influence, let's say, on Hamas are the Qatari and the Qatari government. If they are able to do that, so be it.
I'm terribly sorry. I think we may have lost the line there to Danny. Danny, have we still got you back?
Yes, I hear you.
Let me just ask you that question again, whether or not you think the people, the countries, the diplomats who delivered this pause deliver a lasting peace.
Well, the government that has the most influence and leverage over Hamas is the Qatari government. If they can bring about, let's say, the exit, Israel is willing to allow a safe exit of all Hamas leaders, although they are all murderers. But if they are willing to leave Gaza alone, and the Qataris can take them, we will allow that. They may bring a peace in the future.
Danny, I just need to tell you about some breaking news that I'm just reading about, so forgive me for bouncing this on you, but we are just understanding that the truce has formally been announced to start, or the pause, I should say, to start at 7 a.m. Israel time for the start of the exchange of hostages. Just a quick reaction before we go.
Well, I think this is news in the right direction. Of course, Israel will abide by it. We very much like to see all our hostages. You know, we're talking about elderly people and toddlers and babies. It's inhuman to just keep them. The fact that we even needed to negotiate for that, I think this is a real stain on the Palestinian people. But we're dealing with a murderous terror organization, so we take what we need. The human suffering is what we need to alleviate in the most urgent way. So yes, 7 o'clock, I guess we will welcome that.
Danny, thank you very much indeed for your time. Danny Ayalon, the former Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister and the country's ambassador to the United States between 2002 and 2006. And let me just reiterate that breaking news. The pause will now, we understand, start at 7 a.m. Israeli time tomorrow morning to begin the exchange of hostages, and we'll have more reaction on this breaking news during the course of the next hour or so. Let me also tell you that we're going to be speaking a little later to the Secretary General and the co-founder of the Palestinian National Initiative in the world today on this channel at 1500 GMT today. You're watching CGTN, still ahead, as Israel increases airstrikes and arrests the director of Al-Shifa Hospital. We'll take you next to Gaza.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos and unicorn companies. Make sense of it all with global business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
For China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us, excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top story. Shockwaves across Europe as Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders' Freedom Party claims victory in elections. Our other headlines: residents in Iceland are allowed to return home to collect their belongings as the country braces for a volcanic eruption. Well, let's get more for you now on that delayed ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, along with the hostage releases, which now we understand will begin on Friday morning. Let's talk to our correspondent, Noor Harazin, who's in Gaza. Well, Noor, first of all, a quick word on that breaking news in the last few moments. We now have a time and a date. It's going ahead, we understand, tomorrow morning.
Well, yes, just a few minutes ago, the Qatari foreign minister said in a statement that the humanitarian truce will start in Gaza at 7 a.m. Gaza-Israel time on Friday. However, people, after hearing this news, they are not that optimistic, actually, because the same scenario happened yesterday. It was an official statement, 10 a.m. on Thursday, but nothing happened, and the truce was postponed because of the conditions from the both sides, Hamas and Israel. However, people at the same time are hopeful that this time this truce agreement is going to hold up and they can at least take a rest of the very heavy and intense Israeli attacks on Gaza. Of course, this truce, humanitarian truce, is brokered by Qatar, Egypt, and also the United States. It will also allow humanitarian aid, hundreds of trucks of humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip, of course, and the most important is the release of hostages. 50 will be released by Hamas and 150 will be released from the Israeli side. At the same time, let me point at that actually these hours that we are living before the truce are some of the very intense, we are witnessing some of the very intense Israeli attacks on Gaza, actually in several places in Gaza, in northern Gaza and central Gaza. And here where I'm standing inside the Shuhada Al-Aqsa hospital, which is located in middle Gaza, it was such a horrific night that people went through, and also the early hours of this morning, continuous Israeli bombing, continuous shelling. We're talking about hundreds of people that were killed in the past 12 hours and also hundreds of injuries. And this is something that actually happened before. Whenever there is a truce agreement, a ceasefire agreement, Israel do intensify its attacks on Gaza. We witnessed that on previous escalations and previous wars on Gaza. For now, the people are just hoping that they're going to still alive until 7 a.m. Friday morning.
Noor, we understand that the director of the Al-Shifa hospital has been arrested by Israeli forces. What more are you hearing about that? What more do we know?
Well, we know that the Al-Shifa hospital for a week now is like a closed Israeli military base, and inside the Al-Shifa hospital there is actually 180 patients. Some of them are people who get injured during the past 7 weeks of Israeli war on Gaza. With them there are 3 doctors and 4 nurses, and one of the doctors is actually the director of the Al-Shifa hospital, Dr. Mohammed Abu Salmiya. This morning, while talking to one of the doctors inside the Al-Shifa hospital, he said that the Israeli forces stormed into the unit where the patients and the doctors are kept. They arrested Dr. Mohammed Abu Salmiya, the director of the Al-Shifa hospital, and also they arrested others from the medical staff. Since then, actually, Palestinian Health Ministry here in Gaza, in the West Bank, the governmental media office, even the doctors and other hospitals around Gaza have been condemning this action by the Israeli forces and calling upon the international community, calling upon the Red Cross, the UN, anyone to intervene and release the doctors and the doctor and the medical staff, adding to the fact that there is also a number of paramedics that were arrested while they were on their way to southern Gaza. The Israeli forces actually arrested the paramedics while they were inside the ambulances.
Noor, just a quick final thought. This pause in hostilities, if it happens tomorrow, will see just a few hours relief per day for perhaps 4 days. Realistically, is that going to be enough for the humanitarian agencies to come in, do their work, and for delivery of essential medical supplies, food and water, and the exchange of hostages?
Well, actually looking at the reality here on the ground in Gaza, what we are witnessing, seeing how it is difficult to get clean water, how difficult it is to get food, bread, flour, also the lack of fuel, electricity, and also the bad network, the bad lines, internet. I mean, the Gaza Strip is facing its worst humanitarian crisis in its history. We have never witnessed anything as bad as what the people here are living. And of course, I am one of them, and actually, this 4 hours truce will somehow just give the people the time to just rest their bodies. The hospitals will be able to at least restore some of its capabilities, and also the doctors and the nurses and the paramedics and even us, the journalists, to just take a rest. But of course, it is not enough to meet the needs and the humanitarian needs of the people. We are talking about weeks, if not months, if not years of humanitarian aid to actually meet the needs of the Gaza Strip and the people of Gaza.
Noor, thank you for that. Our correspondent Noor Harazin in Gaza. And the headlines again, that breaking news that a temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas will now begin at 7 a.m. Israel time on Friday. This is according to Qatar's Foreign Ministry. That will then be followed by the release of 13 Israeli hostages at 4 p.m. local time. Our other headline, shockwaves across Europe as Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders' Freedom Party claims victory in the election. And one other story for you. Residents in Iceland are allowed to return home to collect their belongings as the country braces for a volcanic eruption. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel, on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Hello and welcome to the weather forecast. I'm Tierney. Well, over to Europe, and still quite a lot of rain and snow to develop across a vast majority of the continent over the next few days. And snow is likely to cover almost the entire the north as well as the eastern portion of the continent on Friday. But rain will take the dominance here for a lot of locations across the west as well as the central portion. And notice that there could see some change in the wet weather forecast as we head into Saturday. And heavier intensity of rain is setting the stage here for portions of the Balkans. More importantly, we're likely to see quite a lot of winter mix or the transition from rain to snow for a large portion across the central portion of the continent. And that is mainly due to a downward trend in temperatures for the majority of the region from Friday into this weekend possibly. And after the drop, many high temperatures in central portion of Europe will be from lower teens back down into just a single digits. So please stay warm and safe as well. And about a business in travel, and winter mix for Copenhagen, and snow to fall here in the city of Stockholm with both the high and low temperatures and negative readings on Saturday. And over to Moscow, we'll also see some light snow with a high of -1 and low about -11 degrees Celsius. So please enjoy the snowy conditions, but do wear an extra layer, especially when you're getting out. And that is all from me. Stay tuned for more Sit Forecast.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.